All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Prime Beast Hunters Voyager class Shockwave. A decent figure here. He's got some weird stuff about him, obviously, but he's a pretty cool figure nonetheless. Now, it was kind of interesting what they did with Shockwave here because, most of the Beast Hunters line, when it came to the Autobots and Decepticons, they made new or modified molds of the figures that basically, were all tricked out with weird designs that had extra, very not Earth looking things kind of attached to their vehicle modes. But in the case of Shockwave, he didn't have a figure beforehand. So this was the first Transformers Prime Shockwave toy. So to actually make him fit in with the Beast Hunters kind of theme, they included these weird beastie looking armor bits that could attach to him. But they're entirely removable. So you could have just like a vanilla Transformers Prime Shockwave, which is kind of a neat way of doing it to have it fit in with their, subline theme, but then also, just give the figure that people kind of wanted. And he's a decent toy, all things considered. Like I said, there are some issues with him, but I do like him generally. Now, here he is in his weird alien tank mode, which definitely feels like it was like the inspiration for some later designs for Shockwave, like the Bumblebee movie, tank mode for Shockwave. I'd say this is what he turned into in the cartoon, but this is definitely like a much more kind of spindly, less refined version of that design because he's got his hand kind of hanging out in the bottom here. There's not a whole lot of mass. This is obviously his head just hanging out on the top here. And the weird thing is the arm, I don't know, the way that the arm clips on, it doesn't quite clip on straight. It's a little bit, off to an angle, which is not, again, just kind of not refined. And he's got this weird joint in his arm here that's essentially going to be a bicep swivel, but it's on a angle. So I would have assumed that was meant to rotate it in such a way that it would sit kind of straight in vehicle mode. But no matter how I rotate that, I've never gotten that to actually work. It definitely does, activate that joint a little bit, but still, I don't know, it's probably hard to tell on camera, honestly, but this always just kind of angles a little bit to the other side, which is, it's just not, not great. But other than that, his tank mode is what it is, it's either you're going to like the aesthetic or you won't. It's, mostly as intended, but a little bit cobbled together in my opinion. But yeah, he does have one pretty cool action feature here. If you notice the big, thing here on the top is if you push this down, it'll make the whole cannon spin, and just the centrifugal force will activate these, little double hinge sections that are on springs to open it up so you can see this bit here, which looks like it's, I don't know, doing some crazy charge thing, which is not at all accurate to what his cannon did in the show, but it's a neat feature that's really fun. I do wish this had a bit more of an obvious resting point. I mean, it's supposed to be like this just to line up that detail, but it definitely does wiggle around a little bit. It also would have been nice if there's a way to lock this in place so it's not sticking up. I think some people you can kind of if you mess around with it enough, you can kind of get it to lock into place, but it's more trouble than it's worth, honestly. But yeah, it just would have been nice if this whole mechanism had a way to kind of lock, so it wasn't kind of as annoying. But, as a feature, it is really fun to mess with. It's very satisfying. And I like the design of the mechanism there. I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, it definitely does give him a gimmick that does hinder the figure a little bit. And then obviously you can give him his weird crabby armor bits. This one here just has two tabs that kind of plug onto his chest there. So it's all soft and rubbery. So it can be kind of hard to, get that to stay in here. Because you're trying to, shove rubber tabs into plastic holes. And then these ones have these angled tabs that plug onto these holes on the feet here, which, does that to his vehicle mode. I don't know a single person that chooses to leave these bits on when displaying this figure, because it does make it weird. But I do appreciate that, you know, they made them removable so you don't have to use them. But it is weird. I'd say it works better in vehicle mode, honestly, than it does even in robot mode. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of an odd design choice there. But I'll just take those off and put them off to the side and take a look at the figure just in and of itself. In terms of comparisons in this mode, just for a standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe. So you can see, you know, since he's all kind of stretched out, he makes a fairly big tank there. Here he is, again, like I said, with the Studio Series Bumblebee movie Shockwave. So you can definitely see the, you know, design carryovers here, where he's got like the feet in the front here, and you know, he's got the whole alien H-tank thing. He's got these bits kind of sticking out like the spikes do, and then obviously the you know, Shockwave cannon arm on top there. Say this one's a little bit more refined, kind of cohesive, but you know, you can definitely see how A led to B there. And then here he is with Siege Shockwave, just show him off with another Shockwave. But yeah, to get into transformation, I guess I should also say he does have rolling wheels on the bottom. He's got 2 little rolling wheels underneath the treads here, and then these bigger ones on the feet. He rolls, I mean, you're mostly just sliding him around, honestly, because he's so hard to, like, you know, get everything kind of stabilized in place. But yeah, so yeah, to get onto transformation, first thing you want to do is take the cannon arm and just unpeg it there, and then just kind of, you know, adjust the arm. Kind of bring it off to the side here, so you've got the clearance to take these panels and fold them in like that. They're just on little double hinges. And then you can take the other arm, which is just tabbed in there on the underside, and just fold that out. The chest kind of clips into the thighs here, just like that. And then you bring that up, double hinge that into place, and bring the thighs down and rotate the you know, the knees forward. And for the feet here, you kind of have to, they're on this like slider, but it's pretty tight, so you kind of have to like wiggle it back and forth a bit. And you just want to, it can go further, but you want to just get it to this point so that the you know, the sculpting lines up there, and then you can fold down the foot just like that. I think you actually could just slide this whole thing straight off if I remember correctly. Yep, sure can. So that's a little weird that it doesn't have a stopper, but yeah, you just wanted to get it to that point and then fold it down. Then yeah, there's his arms and legs all figured out. Then for the backpack here, basically you take these, you know, extra little spike sections and just kind of rotate them behind the treads here, take these sections and compress them in, and then take this whole thing and rotate it down onto the back, and then obviously rotate around his head. And then you can do whatever you want with these. You can kind of like fold them down or leave them up. Neither are accurate because he didn't have those sticking off his arm in the show, but you know, there we have Transformers Prime Shockwave in his robot mode. And yeah, he looks pretty good. I do like the, you know, the Transformers Prime Shockwave design. It's definitely, it feels like the typical ubiquitous Shockwave design, but it's just got this kind of like, you know, sleeker version of it. I'd say he's one of the characters that's like the most faithful to his like kind of original design, just kind of in the Transformers Prime aesthetic, because, you know, a lot of those characters kind of, you know, they're kind of leaning more into like the sort of movie aesthetic. But yeah, there is one little extra flourish that you can do for him in his robot mode. You might have noticed that in vehicle mode, he actually does have rubber treads here, even though they don't move. And on this side specifically, you can see it's actually like looped in there and wrapped in, because what you're supposed to do, and I'm only going to do this once, and then I'm going to put it right back and never touch it again, because these rubber bits are really about to snap at any point, is hopefully it doesn't happen here, is you can take this and kind of unhook it from this whole section in here. I'm going to do this very carefully. And then you can take this, rotate this back down, and he's actually got this little port right here on his arm that you can squeeze this bit into and give him his typical Shockwave hose, which is a really cool way of accomplishing that. Granted, the rubber is not held up super well, and just because of the design of this, like, it's got a lot of very obvious, easy breaking points, and like, you can see this one right here is like, it's about to tear at any time. So I'm not going to leave him like this for too long. I do want to mention that like it does kind of hinder his arm a little bit, like it makes it kind of want to stick forward a bit, but mostly he can kind of accomplish all the same things articulation articulation wise, which I'm not going to show off with the hose because it almost certainly would break. But you know, it's a shame that it hasn't held up that well over the years, but you know, that tends to happen with rubber over time. But yeah, I do think that that's a neat way to accomplish the Shockwave like hose attachment there. But yeah, at this stage, it's not really worth keeping like that. And he doesn't have that on both sides. Like it's asymmetrical, the sculpting there. Just get that in place, leave that there for the rest of the time. You can see on this side, it pretty much just, you know, ends right here, but it is the same material. It's just, you know, attached differently. But yeah, so that's a pretty neat way of accomplishing that. But yeah, you know, obviously it's the kind of thing you don't want to mess with too often, especially, you know, at this point in the figure's lifespan. But yeah, no, he's otherwise, you know, pretty good looking figure in terms of articulation. The head is just on a swivel, but gets a decent range there. The shoulders can rotate around like that. Obviously would be hindered a bit by the you know, the hose if you have that attached. They can rotate out to the side, and he does have these like springing shoulder panels, which is kind of neat. He's got a regular bicep swivel on this side, and then this weird angled one on this side, which I guess in theory activates a little bit to straighten out the arm and for like vehicle mode, but like not really. So I don't know. It's always weird. He also does have a rotation below the elbow on this side. He's got about 90 degrees of bend over here and a little bit less on the gun arm side. His wrist is on a ball joint for whatever reason, although it's kind of tight in there and it's like kind of a weird long stock, so you don't get like, I don't know, it feels a little bit risky to rotate it, but you can hinge it up and down again for some reason. Nothing at the waist. His hips can go forward and back. Now, I do want to mention, and you may even see here where the, you know, it's kind of gotten all gross and white here from like super glue residue, but I did edit the hips a long time ago, pretty much when I got this guy, because they used to do that really annoying thing where like this, he would be standing up like this, and then one click out to the side, he'd be like that. So I just kind of shaved down the ratchets, and then had to add some super glue in there to like tighten it up. And his legs are still, you know, a little bit loose after that whole thing, but I'd rather them be a little bit loose than like that and have him not being able to like stand in a way that like looks good. I don't know, but yeah, so his hips can go all the way out to the side. He does have a thigh swivel in there, about 90 degrees of bend at the knee. And then the feet, I mean, you can tilt them back a little bit, but that's pretty much it. It doesn't have any ankle tilt or anything like that. So, you know, okay articulation, missing a couple modern joints like ankle tilts and a waist swivel, but, you know, it's not too bad. And you can, yeah, like I said, you can do whatever you want with these. I honestly took these off a long time ago, and they're kind of a pain to get back on. So, you know, you just want to decide if you want them off or not. But I don't think that they add enough to the look of the figure. Like, yes, granted, they're more accurate to like how he had those spikes in vehicle mode, but in robot mode, he really didn't have those. So even folding them down like this, I think, you know, is not a great look, but to each their own. I'd say, like, if you leave them on, I kind of prefer the look of having them up, but, you know. And again, you know, with the arm, it wiggles around. You kind of want to keep it in this position to, like, have the sculpting match, but it's always going to just awkwardly move around a little bit. Now, we can give him his his Beast Hunters armor, I guess, here, where, you know, the chest just kind of plugs back on where it was, which, you know, looks cool enough. Weird, but cool enough. And then these, you're really supposed to just kind of like plug onto the shoulder pads. I forget which way, honestly. Yeah, I think like that. And because of the angle of the pegs, they sit at this like weird angle, and it just screams of like, oh, we just had to find a place to put these. Like, it looks super weird. It's whatever. I don't know if this would really serve as like a Predacon disguise. That was kind of the implication for this stuff at the time, but I don't know. The chest piece is kind of neat looking. I do kind of like how it has sort of like a Matrix of Leadership sculpt in the middle there. That looks kind of neat, but yeah, no, I mean, obviously I took this stuff off a long time ago and just leave it off to the side because, you know, you buy this figure to have this look for Shockwave, not to have all the Beast gunk on him. So it's whatever. But, you know, like I said, I appreciate that it's pretty unobtrusive and it allowed them to, you know, have him fit into the subline, I guess. I don't think anyone would have been bothered if they just left that off, but whatever. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe. Here he is again with Siege Shockwave. So you can see he's a bit taller than he is. And then last but not least, here he is again with the Bumblebee movie Shockwave, which, you know, obviously his design is a bit more based on G1 here. Like, it's not taking as many obvious cues from this design as it was in vehicle mode, but still, I feel like they look kind of cool together. And yeah, he does the pink eye Shockwave thing because that's how he was in the show rather than the yellow eye Shockwave. I always prefer yellow eye Shockwave personally, but and then, you know, he kind of does the other Shockwave trope here of like being a little bit less show accurate in favor of like having the, you know, the clear pink chest here, but it does look super cool, so I'm not overly bothered by it. Although obviously, you know, in the show, I think his chest was just black or maybe just like silver. I can't totally remember, but yeah, no, he's a really fun figure. He definitely feels a little bit unrefined, especially by today's standards, but you know, he's still a lot of fun. Again, not without issue. I don't love the spike things. Obviously the rubber is kind of, you know, deteriorating over time. I hate that his hips initially were like that. But other than that, you know, after messing around and, you know, fixing some things with him, like, again, I just tear those off. And that'll be the last time I put those on because it was weirdly difficult to get those back on again. Glad I even still had them, but I prefer that look personally. I leave him in his robot mode design, so like, you know, it's more worth it to me to clean up the robot mode than to have a, you know, super accurate spike included vehicle mode, I guess. But you know, to each their own. He's a fun figure, not my favorite Shockwave, but you know, he definitely does look like the character he's supposed to. But yeah, no, that's pretty much all there is to him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday and Thursday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Prime Beast Hunters Shockwave.